G'day, my name is Joel Rasmussen for Southern Cross Combat, and ahead of his fight at Hex 30, I'm talking to Mr. Sean Gauci. Sean, thank you so much for your time. How are you today?
I'm going good, man. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on the show. This is the first time I've met and spoken to you, but it is a pleasure to meet and speak with you. How are you? How is the Sunshine Coast treating you?
It's good, man. I love it up here. It's the weather's obviously beautiful. Bit of a change from Melbourne. We only get really one or two seasons every day rather than all four.
Yeah.
The nice change for me. And obviously the training is also awesome up here. So I'm enjoying it, mate. Yeah.
So you previously have throughout your career kind of split your time between dominance and ignite. Are you now living up there now? I'm assuming, are you now more full time out of ignite?
Yeah. So the my first nine fights, I actually was just training at dominance. So I was just in Melbourne. Under Dominance and Sam Greco. And only recently, March last year, have I moved up and been splitting my time a little bit between Ignite and Dominance. And now, like more so since my last fight, which fell through, I've kind of been full time in the Sunshine Coast, just because it's very, very difficult to travel back and forth, back and forth. So I think I'll be doing that more so out of training camps rather than when I'm in training and I'm ramping up for a fight, just because I kept getting ill or sick or everything that goes into travel. So right now, more so full time at Ignite, but I'm still representing Dominance as well because they raised me. So both of them.
How often do you get a chance to come back down to Melbourne?
I like to do it quarterly at least, and sometimes there's shorter trips, like just a week, 4 or 5 days, but just as long as I'm staying up to date with with what the coaches there also want me doing, and just keeping involved as well in the teams down there is important to me. So yeah, every quarter, every 3 months, I'd say I get down there, and all my family's there, man. So it's always a bonus seeing my family there.
How is it for your development as a fighter to have not just kind of one set of coaching eyes on you, but two?
Yeah, it's awesome, man, because I've like I said, my first nine fights were really at dominance, and I was quite I just enjoyed staying at the one place, to be honest. So I didn't really step out of my comfort zone too much. And eventually, if you train somewhere for so long, it does become like a comfort thing and familiarity. So I just me mixing it up and training it at different gyms has always been a bit of a bonus. And I think it's beneficial for fighters to cross train. And I don't think you should be necessarily training here, there, and everywhere. But if you get a chance to train and get some different looks and different perspectives from different coaching, I think it's really important. And coming up here has actually just proven that correct, because I've gained so much in the past year, like my MMA game as a whole. I think when people see me on May 4th, they're going to be like, whoa, it's a totally different Sean Gauci than the last time we saw him. So I'm excited for that, mate. Yeah.
What has it been like training at Ignite?
Good. It's very different than dominance. Like I think I said this in another interview. Dominance is like it has very high level grappling, and that's where the strengths are there. But I was splitting up a lot of my training in Melbourne, going with Sam, doing my kickboxing, back at Dominance for my grappling, and a few other places for sparring and whatnot. So the best thing about Ignite is most of it is all under the one roof. I do all my striking, my grappling, and everything at Ignite. I get a few extra striking rounds with Ryan Doyle, who's close by as well, and he's amazing. But it's as a whole, the MMA in at Ignite is there's obviously a tailored team, and there's the head coach Ryan, who oversees everything, Ryan Dunstan, and it's just very structured at the moment. So it's a lot better. Everything's under the one roof. I don't have to worry about communicating with 4 or 5 different coaches. I only have really 2 or 3 coaches that are overlooking things, and they're all on the same page, which I've never been able to attain for my entire career, where all the coaches are on the same page. And when they're on the same page, the camp just flows a lot smoother. And if you are feeling crap, if you're under the weather, everyone's on the same page. They're not all trying to kick your butt at the same time. If you know what I mean. So it's really good, man. Been beneficial for me.
Now, along with kind of a core group of people who train out of Ignite in the Dunstan Death Squad, I feel like recently there's been kind of a lot of people coming up, popping in and
Yeah.
getting some training as well. So
Yeah.
how has that been to train with people who are consistently there, and then you're kind of getting the revolving door a little bit as well?
Yeah, look, that's good, man. I don't have any say in that. I just turn up to training and whoever's there is there. Um, but it is cool. I don't mind people coming to train, even if they're in my weight class. I don't mind. That's all good. Um, but the core group is definitely enough. Like we've got some really good guys, some high level talent. We've obviously got Jake Piper in my weight class. We've got a few younger guys, Thomas and Thorin, Shellhammer coming up. We have Jean Alexander, who's just moved up. He's a pro that you guys probably hear about pretty soon, I'd imagine. And so we've got enough, mate. It is awesome though to get some different looks. Like we've had Reece McLaren come in a few times, and he's signed to one, so there's no real chance of us fighting anytime soon. But he's like sparring with him. It's high level rounds. I would say he's like top 20 in the world, top 10 even. And it's just given me a very good look at where I stand in the flyweight division. Yeah.
How like when you're looking at training partners, how is that balance of trying to get people who you can train with, they're in your weight class? Obviously, you can train with people who are a bit above, like it's not locked in, but still, like the best people to train with are probably people in your weight class. But then also, you have to kind of keep in mind we might meet each other down the track.
Yeah, look, it's just a conversation you need to have with the person, I believe, and you need to cross that bridge early. Like if you don't want to fight them and you just want to create a good, friendly, camaraderie, then you have that conversation early. But if you're still like, I still train with people that I would fight, for example. You know what I mean? It's not like just because we trained together once or twice, we're best friends now. And that's clear on both sides, I think. And you can still grow from each other because there's only so much, like in the flyweight division, man, there's only so many people in Australia, especially that are below 65 kilos. So there's few and far between as far as training partners comes. And you're right, it is good to get the same size because, for most of my earlier career, I was sparring with bigger guys and yeah, they hit harder and whatnot. But the speed and the stamina that a lot of flyweights bring is something that you don't get when you're sparring, a welterweight or a lightweight or even heavier, for example. So it's been beneficial for me. I think this is recently I've sparred with a lot of smaller guys, and it's just leveled up my game even more because I'm used to and I'm tuned into the timing and the speed and what I need to do rather than kind of just rocking up on fight night and being like, oh crap, this guy's fast. I got to adjust.
Talking about one of those people you were training with, I may have been yesterday or the day before training with Stewart Nicoll.
Yeah, look, we yeah we just did some sparring together. He reached out to me for his last fight. He was going to fight a good striker. He wanted some striking looks, and again, it's just one of those situations where we're using each other to level up. But I think if it comes down to it, and we have to fight, we have to fight. That is what it is. We're okay. We're okay with that. We're both professionals. We're not amateurs, and we know how to deal with things amicably. And Stu's a legend, man. He's a great fighter, and he's ready for that next level as well.
Does that affect how you train with someone when that's in your head?
Nah, I don't care. It's all good. Sparring isn't a fight. Doesn't matter how hard you spar. Doesn't matter how if you wear no shin pads. It doesn't matter. Fight night is very different, man. So you might spar someone and get your ass whooped, but you rock up on fight night and the lights and everything and the pressure changes that fighter. So it's a totally different feeling. So I've learned that over my time. Like when you're a young guy, when you're a young fighter, you look at your sparring matches and you might say, "Oh, I beat this guy," or "He got the better of me," or "He's a better fighter than me." But it really doesn't matter, and that's something I've learned. Sparring isn't a fight. A fight is very different. Like you might be able to choose something, eat someone's calf kicks up for 3 rounds in a sparring match because you're wearing shinnies. But if in a fight they hit the peroneal nerve and then your foot goes and then your legs numb and everything goes, it's totally different. So I don't look at that and go, oh, I got to hide my skill set because I'm sparring with this guy. No, I know I'm world class. I know some of these people that I'm sparring with are world class. So it's whoever can show up on the night of the fight and turn it on. So I don't change who I am. I don't try and pretend to be worse than I am or go harder than I should be. No, I'm a professional, man. I'm just Sean, and I show up to sparring and I'll show up on fight night as well.
Now, you talked about training at Ignite, and you talked about kind of the environment there. It does feel though that David Martinez has been bullying you on social media with these "Where's Gauci" hill runs.
Yeah,
What's going on with the bullying?
I think the time we did run hills, I was fresh off the couch and I smoked him a few times, So I think ever since then he's been using that as fuel to try and get himself up that hill, because you've seen his running style. It takes it a lot for him to get up that hill. He looks like the Terminator doing it, and he's not the quickest bloke. So look, I think he's just using it as motivation, mate. It doesn't bother me. I know who gets up that hill faster, and it's definitely not Dave Martinez.
Have you been doing any hill runs with him since then?
No, look, our training schedules don't link up all the time. Like he does a lot of the hill runs on Saturdays when I'm working in the morning. That's why he always calls me out. He knows I can't get there. You know what I mean? So we don't necessarily always sync up, but when we do, we try to. And I'm taking the Mickey as well. He's obviously a great athlete, and he does well. So yeah.
What is your relationship like with David? I'm assuming it's good. You guys obviously, as you said, taking the Mickey out of each other.
I love Dave. He's a character, mate. I love him. He's very unassuming, as you guys all know. He's unassuming the way he looks, but he can fight, man. He can scrap, and we've had some pretty good sparring sessions as well. When he grabs a hold of me, it's a bit hard, but when we're striking, it's pretty fun. So I love him. I love training with him as well.
Now, this upcoming fight is for a title, and it marks your move back to flyweight. You were
Yep.
flyweight a little bit earlier in your career, kind of went between, and then kind of moved to bantamweight. Why the move back to flyweight?
It's always been on my mind, man. I had my first 7 or 8 fights at flyweight, so all my fights were at flyweight. I had to take some time off from the sport for about 3 years because I got unwell, and with that issue, I went on some pretty heavy medication, and some of the medications that I was put on made you gain a lot of weight. So I gained, I think in a month I gained about 13 kilos from one of the side effects from the medication, and it's a very stubborn body fat. So when I decided to come back to the sport, I was really heavy, and I needed to make the decision. I'm not going to cut from 75 to 57. I'm probably going to cut from 75 to 61. And even though I thought it would be quite easy because I hadn't really been training consistently, it was pretty hard to get off. So I just kind of ended up at bantamweight. I didn't put on muscle to try and get up to bantamweight. I didn't do a program or nothing. I just ended up there. And then the next thing you knew, I was fighting for a title at bantamweight. And then that title fight fell through, but I still fought. I won it. And then another time it fell through. So I kind of was just put in a position where I was all of a sudden at bantamweight, and it was always on my mind. Even Hex knew from last year before I fought for the first title that I was probably going to want to move down to flyweight. So it's always been on my mind, man. And now it's just the perfect timing. If I don't commit to the drop, you're just not going to do it. Like eating discipline and being disciplined, and I'm not restricted. I'm not severely dieting or anything, but just living that lifestyle of a professional athlete. It's hard when you don't have to do it. So when you've got to do it and you've got a date set, like, hey man, you got to make this weight by May. It changes your mindset, it changes your attitude, and it changes your habits as well. So that's why I made the decision now. Like, I got to do this. Time's running out. I'm not 22 anymore. I'm 27 now. I know it still sounds young, but fighting goes past you very quickly. And if you're not being professional, and if you're not being disciplined or sacrificing anything, and you're being complacent, I believe it's going to bite you on the ass eventually. So that was where my mindset was with the drop. I wasn't a natural bantamweight. I'm 5'6" on a good day, and I'm sure you've probably seen photos of me standing next to Mikey Manu. We're quite different in size. Skills wise, I can hang with anyone. I can hang with anyone in any weight class. I know that for a fact. It's just size wise, the best weight class for me right now is flyweight. When I make that decision to gain and bulk up, I will go to bantamweight eventually, definitely. But right now, it's not that time. If I was to make that decision to go to bantamweight and stay there, then I would kill all chances of going to flyweight ever again, because I am on that border. So I need to be in or out. It's no half in, half out. You know, there's some in-betweeners that fight at flyweight, but I'm not an in-betweener. So yeah, I got to make that decision. I'm a big flyweight, and it's my weight class, and I've had all my wins there. Oh, not all of them, but I've had a lot of good wins there against good people. And I think that when I look at the UFC flyweight division, I really think that I truly believe I can make a run right now if I got in. So that's where my mindset was. Sorry, I went on a bit of tangent, but there you go.
No, please, absolutely. It kind of you touched on my next question that so you're not done with bantamweight.
I'm not done with bantamweight. No, not at all. It's just for now. It's flyweight. That's the weight class that I want to get into the UFC because it makes the most sense right now. I could take another 6 months off and bulk up to bantamweight, but I don't really want to do that right now. Right, I've got unfinished business at this weight class. I was forced to kind of go up a weight class when I didn't really want to, and so why wouldn't I take this opportunity and make a real run at it when I know I can, rather than taking another 6 months off, putting in the bantamweight division on hold on Hex, blah blah blah. Doing it just doesn't make sense. So I'm focused on flyweight right now. Who knows what the future holds? Maybe I'll end up doing this weight cut, you know, because I'll still have to cut weight. And I'll be like, oh, you know, I don't like it. So I don't know. But right now, my goals and my focus is set on the flyweight division. Yes.
So, you know, talking there about that almost forced move to bantamweight, obviously you held your own and obviously you accomplished great things during that run at bantamweight. But how did you feel physically? You talked about stubborn weight. Did you feel heavy? You may not have looked heavy, but did it feel bad?
Yeah, I think if you watch my fight last November of 2022 when I returned, and I was fortunate enough to get a knockout pretty early in the fight, about 15 seconds in. I remember like seeing photos of my body after the fight, and I just looked very soft and heavy, and I felt really heavy. Like even my footwork in training, just I was lying to myself. I was like, yeah, I'm carrying more power, but I wasn't. I was really just kind of overweight for that weight class, even for bantamweight. And then the fight in February when I won the title, yeah, I was a little leaner and I looked good, but I just didn't feel myself. I was kind of gassing earlier than I usually was. And when you're carrying that extra weight and you're not used to it, it makes a big difference. So I did feel different. And if I want to go back down, man, I want to do a proper proper program for it. Again, I like to think that I am a professional. I don't just do things off of a whim because blah blah blah. You know, I'm not worried about weight divisions, but if I'm going to do it right, I want to do it right. I mean, we all saw Max Holloway when he fought Poirier. He just had a moon face essentially, and then when we saw him fight Justin Gaethje, he looked jacked, and it was a different person. So it matters what you do. You can't just go up and go down willy-nilly just because, no, people at bantamweight, mate, they all walk around at 75, 74 kilograms. So if you're walking around at 66, 67, you're giving up 7 kilos to a lot of these guys, maybe even more. Some of them walk around really heavy, man. So, yeah, that if I'm going to do that in the future, I'm just going to do it properly and just be a little jacked unit. That's it, Sean Shirk style.
I don't mean to turn this interview into like the Weight Watchers interview, like just talking about weight all the time. So I think this will be my last question about weight. But your father was a professional jockey.
Yeah.
And that's a sport where they also do weight cutting, but it's like in the opposite way. It's like get as light as you can before you get on the horse, whereas our sport is get as heavy as you can before you get in the cage.
Yeah.
Have you ever spoken to your dad about weight cutting?
Yeah. He's helped me out with a lot of the weight cuts. I wouldn't say, sorry, I wouldn't say he's the best nutrition wise. He just goes kind of starvation mode when he cuts weight, but he's done a lot of brutal weight cuts in his time. And I've been there when I was young, and I remember seeing him doing some of those weight cuts at home and being like, whoa. So he's helped me out with a lot of my weight cuts, especially on the day, like in the sauna or in the hot bath. Just a few tactics and a few tips and tricks to keep yourself feeling really good. And yeah, it's been super beneficial having his help actually, because the thing about being a jockey, and you hit the nail on the head there, is that they actually cut weight and then weigh in after their race. So they weigh in before and after to make sure that there's no cheating or anything going on. But like a lot of fighters don't understand that we're at your lowest when when I stand on scales at 57.2, I'm going to be pretty, how you going? And I think a lot of people are when they make weight. And then imagine getting on an 800 kilo horse and, yeah, it's crazy. I don't know how dad does it. I don't know. And you have to do that for the whole day. So it's not just like for an hour. You got to do it from 10 a.m. till 5 p.m. if you've got a full day booked of racing. So I have full respect to the jockeys because what they do is incredible. I don't know how they put their bodies through that every week because I can do it hardly 3 or 4 times a year. So good on them.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
So you mentioned there about the last time we saw you in the cage was February and you captured the title. It's now been over a year since the last time we saw you fight. Not obviously you've been booked between then, but things don't work out. How has that year been for you?
Good, man. Like I said, I started with Ignite. The reason, because after the title fight with Cody was meant to happen in February, I had Haiwan Lee step in, a good little South Korean fighter. After that fight, after I won the belt, I was moving into state. So I just let Hex know I want a little bit of time because I didn't actually know where I was going to be bunkering down for training at that time. I had a few different kind of gym options. And then when I came up here and I kind of settled it into Ignite, I made my decision to fight again in November. Let's defend the belt and then go down to flyweight, regardless of who I fought or what the result was, essentially. And yeah, that ended up not happening. But I've just been leveling up the whole time, man. Like I had that camp for November, so I was super fit and ready to go for that. I got a bit unwell with the staph infection and whatnot, so I took a bit of time off to get back into the gym, and just been building on then. So on everything since then. So I'd say the biggest improvement in my game is just my whole MMA, like putting it all together. I don't know if I've necessarily leveled up striking in individual aspects. I've always had good skills everywhere, but putting it all together is totally different. If you look at fighters like Mighty Mouse, he can like do everything. It looks seamless. And that's what I'm actually aiming for as a fighter, is to not look like I'm separating the art forms. Is to make it look like I'm flowing in between all of them really, really smoothly. And that's probably the biggest thing I've leveled up in since being up here, is because I've been sparring so much MMA. And I used to spar a lot of just kickboxing and then with some takedown rounds, you know what I mean? So in that way, I've leveled up a lot. I'm just really excited to get in there finally. Knock on wood, 2 weeks to go. I'm just going to do everything I can to stay as healthy as possible because I want to fight 3 times this year at least. So let's keep the ball rolling.
If you could, pick those 3 times, what do you think that path is?
May, obviously, and then July or August and November. Those are some pretty good dates. There is a Hex on June 14. I just want to see how the weight cut goes. I'm pretty close to weight right now. Like I'm lighter than I was the day of my last weigh-in day for bantamweight. So I think I woke up on that day at 64.5, and I'm already lighter than that. So I'm like within striking distance for flyweight already, and I've got another 2 weeks left. So I think it's going to be good. So there is a Hex in June. I'm not going to jump the gun and say, look, because I don't want to look past this guy at all. It could be a really tough fight. It could be a war. I don't know. So if it's all good though, and I win in good fashion, that June card I could defend my belt, or we could wait until July if there's a Hex card, or wherever, or August even. I know the UFC is coming in August, but I'd like to get 2 fights probably before the later half of the year, just because it'll give me a good case for the Contender Series. Or if they do have that August card, I'm going to stay very fit and keep my weight low. So if there's a flyweight pull out, I'm straight in there. Bang.
Your opponent, he hasn't fought on he's fought on Ryzen. That footage is, you can view that. It's not necessarily someone who's there's no videos of his fights. But how is that preparing for an international opponent that you may not be super familiar with?
I've done it before. Honestly, I don't like, how do I say this respectfully? I don't like fighting internationals that much because no one really knows about them. And it's almost like you don't get the credit that you deserve if you have a good win. You know what I'm saying? like even my last opponent, he stepped in on late notice and he kind of had a shallower record, but I think he's had quite a few striking fights and all that. So you don't really get the respect that you deserve. So look, it's always a challenging one. There's a bit more pressure on you as well because you are the local boy, and you might be people know who you are, so you're expected to win, even though it's a tough fight. But it hasn't been hard to find footage on him. I've watched nearly all of his fights, and I think some of the fights, I think he hasn't fought the best competition. I'm going to be completely honest about that. I don't think he's fought the best competition. I don't think he's fought anyone on my caliber, not even close. So I think he's going to get a rude awakening when he fights me. But then again, he might turn around to me and say, "Hey, you probably never fought anyone as good as me or with my experience." So we'll see. We'll see who's correct. May 4th.
You talked about pressure of being the local boy in this fight. There is no local boy because the fight's over in New Zealand.
Yeah, technically, but you know what I mean. People know me on Hex. I think I've had about 6 or 7 fights on Hex. So, I think I'm known on the local scene at this point. So, I think that's what I mean by that.
Of course. But I wanted to ask, have you ever fought internationally before?
No, this is my first time, man. So I'm excited to. I don't know if this classifies into. Do you reckon? I don't know. We don't even need. Do we need visas? I don't even think.
I don't know if I need a visa. I got my passport, but I don't know if I need a visa.
Yeah, I think you just need your passport. But yeah, I guess it's cool, man. And I owe a big thank you to Hex. They're great. They're a great promotion, and they're putting in a lot of effort right now with their fighters, and it's showing. And I think that should be appreciated because there's always a time in promotions where there's tension between the fighters, the promoters. I think there's some now within Australia, with all the political stuff going on behind the scenes. So it's just cool that Hex had the belief in me to put me. I think I'm co-main event at this point, so put me co-main event on an international card in New Zealand. They know I'm an exciting fighter. They know I bring it. So yeah, it's awesome.
I know. As we talked about there, it kind of doesn't even really feel international because there's that good relationship between the two.
Yeah.
But I know they speak English, so it'll be fine. But still, like, how is it to fight overseas? It's a completely different environment with your preparation and everything.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see, man. I guess it's going to be a learning process for me, traveling a little bit. I think it's like a 6-hour flight from here. So yeah, we'll see. I think I'll be fine though, man. I'll settle in pretty. I've fought interstate before, Adelaide. Have I fought in Perth? I don't think I've fought in Perth. I haven't fought in Perth, but I've cornered in Perth a couple of times. I fought in Brisbane when I was in Melbourne. So, I'm used to staying in the hotels, maybe getting shitty sleep here and there. So I'm not overly fussed about it, mate. I'm ready to go. A fight is a fight at the end of the day. The adrenaline's gonna be pumping, and doesn't matter where you are. You're gonna fight.
As you said there, it's a fight. It's a fight. And I know you said, like you established earlier, you're not looking to float between bantamweight and flyweight. If you had the choice, though, would you have liked to have kept the bantamweight title and then gone for the champ status?
Yes, of course. But beggars can't be choosers at this point. If I had have fought in November and let's say I got the nod against Paul Loga when Paul stepped in for Cody, then I would have gone down and I would have had a case to say, hey guys, I've done this. I took the late notice replacement when I didn't necessarily need to, and I've won. Let me go down. And I think Hex would have been on board with that. It's just like now that I've made the decision to go down and already began that weight drop process, just didn't make sense to me to hold on and keep the division held up. There was a time earlier in the year where there was a little bit of miscommunication between Hex and myself and Cody's team. So we weren't actually sure if Cody was good to go until like mid to very late January. And we'd already made the decision like literally a month before that to drop down to flyweight and get a fight in March or May on Hex for flyweight. So, I just want to be, I'll give the bantamweight guys their shot too. There's some good fighters there. He obviously didn't get the nod against Colby, which sucks, but Colby also needs to get his shot, and then that's Cody's weight class. He wants to stay there for a long period of time, so he's going to be active in defending his belt as well. So, I can't just stay there and hold on to everything. I don't think that's really fair, especially not on the regional scene. So I'm happy with going down to flyweight. People still know that I'll be a 2-weight champion. And it's not really about that at the end of the day for me. It's about I've got my eyes on the world stage, man. I don't really mind. I don't say this because with any disrespect to Hex, I have a lot of pride in fighting for Hex. But the Hex title isn't my end goal in my fighting career. My end goal in my fighting career is a UFC title, and so I don't put too much emphasis on the titles. I don't even think the UFC puts a lot of emphasis on the titles, to be honest. I just saw 2 flyweights that got signed to the Contender Series yesterday, and I don't think either of them have a title in any promotion. They're just exciting. So you just have to be exciting these days. You don't worry about titles or this or that or the other. If it gets thrown at you, of course, take it. You want to have a belt. You want to have a belt there to tell your grandchildren about when you're older. But for me, I'm not putting emphasis on, I want to keep my belt. I want to be a double champ. Like, I don't care about that, not right now.
Ultimately, was it your decision to vacate the title?
Yeah. Mutual decision. Hex they didn't know what the situation with Cody was. So they were like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, in the midst of flyweight fights and all this sort of stuff being thrown at me, we're kind of like, oh, well, Cody actually is going to fight. So what do you want to do? And I was like, well, he can just I'll vacate it. It's all good. Bit of a miscommunication from everyone. So a little bit frustrating at the time, but it is what it is. And I can't really change that. And I don't really care, to be honest, at this point.
And now you talked about earlier about, at your caliber, your level, you establish yourself at bantamweight. People still know you're going to be a killer at flyweight. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Hex put out like a mini documentary video about you quite a few years ago, and you talked about growing up and really wanting to play AFL, and then you realize, well, that's not really going to work out for me.
Yeah.
When to have that door kind of close, but then this door opens and you see kind of the success that you're having right now. How is that for you? Like when you think about it, about, damn, one kind of dream didn't work out, but this one is.
Yeah, it's crazy how life works. Like when I was 14, I liked the UFC. I was a fan of, GSP and Brock Lesnar and whatnot, but I just liked fighting because I grew up watching boxing. I wasn't really thinking about doing it, Um, so, I still was in love with football and AFL, and then that dream kind of gets taken away from you, or you almost fall out of love with it. And then, just by trying something new, which is what I did with Muay Thai originally, I fell in love with it. And it's just crazy how life works. And now I'm in a position where I believe I'm 1 or 2 fights away from being in the UFC, and I know I'm good enough to be there. It's just about getting there, which is the hardest point. But yeah, I'm not putting too much weight into what's next. I know I'm talking about what I think I can do, but I'm just thinking about May 4th right now, and that's my main priority, is getting the job done, and getting the job done in spectacular fashion. That's what I aim to do, and then we can start worrying about that. Right now, my career's actually been pretty weird, man. I wouldn't even say I've had a lot of success just yet. I mean, I've every time I get the ball rolling, there's something happens. By the time I was 6-1, I had a great knockout on Hex. I got hit with a pretty nasty illness, so I was out for a while, and then COVID happened during that time. So I just want to get the ball rolling. Once I'm in the UFC, then I can say, okay, well, now I'm experiencing some success. So, but right now I got to grind for that.
How, obviously, like you've expressed, that's frustrating. How do you stay the course when those roadblocks are getting in your way?
You have good people around you. That's the most important thing. Having good people and good support around you, because I definitely wouldn't be still fighting if I didn't have good people around me. 100%. There was many times where I was like, you know what? It's obviously my body's telling me something. I'm not designed for this, or maybe I'm pushing myself too hard. I don't know. but people just supporting you, calming you down. There's always something I've realized, and I think you realize with a bit of age, is it always works out one way or another. It always works out. So, and time heals everything. So just give it a bit of time, give it a bit of thought, and you'll be okay. And something I'm lucky is that I kind of got thrust into the deep end with my professional career. So I had 7 fights before I was 22, and I was 6-1. So I set myself up early. You know, if I was maybe 1-0, and then all that stuff happened, and I had to now I'm having to build myself up over the next couple of years, it would be a bit tougher. But because I had already laid the foundations down for a good career, I think it's made it a little bit easier to see the other side of the tunnel. But to say it wasn't tough is a lie. It was extremely hard when I was going through my health battles. I definitely thought about quitting. I thought about just hanging up the gloves for sure. But good people around me has helped me a lot.
You talked about, you begin to get an interest in Muay Thai. You kind of walk into the gym. Uh, when you walked into that gym for the first time, did you know it was something you were going to pursue professionally? Not Muay Thai, but fighting.
Yeah, I'd say it was the first couple of times I sparred. I didn't realize how much I actually really loved it, and I enjoyed it. But it really wasn't until I met a coach called Trail Dowie at Dominance, and he was like kind of the first person to believe in me as an MMA fighter, and he gave me the time of day and really put a lot of effort into me. And then my love for the sport grew and grew and grew. And he told me, even when I think when I first met him, I might have been 16 or 17. He said to me, "You can go all the way." And when someone says that to you, look, I think that gets thrown around way too much these days. You know, there's a lot of talented people in the world, but the message he always tried to instill in me was that you can go all the way, but it's about, putting your head down to the grindstone and making it happen. And I've always just kind of had that mindset. A lot of people are talented, but you got to work hard for it. And I just fell in love with that process of hard training, earning a win. Nothing feels better than when you do 8 weeks and you sacrifice time with your friends, you sacrifice time with your family, you sacrifice enjoyment, food, drinking, whatever it might be that you enjoy, and you just dedicate yourself. And then when it pays off in a fight, even if you don't get the nod, but you've put on a hell of a performance, there's no better uplifting feeling than that. And that alone will make you fall in love with the sport. So not initially, it wasn't straight away, but I fell in love with the process. And when people started believing in me, I was like, oh wow, because I lacked a little bit of confidence when I was a young guy, So I think that built some confidence, and I was keen and ready to have a real crack at it.
I asked earlier about how it was to train with and kind of got your thoughts on Stewie Nicoll. You, him, and one other man I would view as kind of the top echelon right now of Australian flyweight. And I got your opinion on Stewart. So I was wondering, what are your thoughts on Anthony Drillich?
Um, yeah, he's a good fighter, mate. I mean, I haven't seen his whole skill set on display. You know, that's a lie. I actually cornered Michael Manu against him in Perth, but that was a while ago, and he was a bantamweight at the time. But I remember Mikey kind of, I don't want to say broke him, but he definitely uh, overpowered him throughout over the course of the fight, and his grappling was quite dominant. And Mikey's a very good grappler, so I don't think he lacks in that department. But I haven't seen his full game. But obviously, he's got the great equalizer. He's got a big left hand, and you have to be careful about when you fight someone like that. You have to be smart and methodical. So I think he's a very good fighter, and again, he's one of those fighters right now that's probably 1 or 2 fights away in the flyweight division.
You've made your goals known throughout this interview and throughout kind of your career about where you want to go to the UFC. It can be very unclear at times. If there was a criteria, people would just all do that. There isn't exactly one. Has there been any conversation between like your management and them at all?
Yeah, like you got to keep tabs on where you're at and what they want. And one of the things they told us was about the weight class. They liked me more as a flyweight, as an option at flyweight, and they just want excitement, man. They just want finishes, and that's where I kind of went wrong my last fight because there was a lot of pressure. Late notice international, who's actually pretty good. It was like a lot of pressure, and I think I wouldn't want to say played it safe, but I kind of couldn't pull the trigger as much as I would have liked to have. So I just need to go and just pull the trigger. And when I let loose, I think I can take out anyone and not just beat them and get the W, but finish them. So that's what I've got to start doing, is just finishing people, and it'll happen, and make myself undeniable. Um, and also, like, it's been a weird kind of career as well, in the way that I fought a lot of good people like Urseg, Richard Lockett, those kind of guys, but they had shallow records at the time. So did I. And it's kind of like the UFC wants to see me fight people with, bigger records. So we're fighting, our next opponent has 10 wins and 4 losses, 14 fights. So he's had more fights than me. Obviously a winning record as well. And he's a good fighter. So that's one off the checklist as well. But no like guarantees at all with the UFC, and I'm not holding on to it. Like, I know that Emrahan kid last year was saying that I was waiting to get into the UFC. That wasn't the case at all. I wasn't waiting to get into the UFC. I wasn't expecting a call up. I just had to take some time off to move interstate, just like he did when he probably moved here. Um, anyway, that's yeah.
when when you watch that fight, talking about Emrahan and Michael, obviously Michael's your friend, so there's
Yeah.
already that involvement. But then when the other guys also then been talking about you, what were your reactions during that fight?
Well, I was actually really sick at the time. I was actually, I think I'd just gotten out of hospital from my staph. I was on IV antibiotics. So my mood was low. I'm not gonna lie. I was in a pretty shitty mood because I was actually meant to fight at Festival Hall, which would have been freaking awesome. But I was just ecstatic for Mikey. I've trained with Mikey since 2014 or 15. The kid is so good. When he's on and the right Michael Manu shows up, he's the top guy at bantamweight. Sometimes in his performances, he doesn't like fully show his best potential, but I know his true potential because I've trained against him and he gives me hell. So against Emrahan, I knew it was going to happen, bro. I knew Emrahan wasn't on our level. I. So the funny thing is, he was talking all this smack about me and everyone else in the division, Cody, Colby, everyone. But I literally watched him at a white belt competition struggle against white belts, and he wants to talk about his wrestling and he's from Dagestan or whatever. But he just trained there and took a couple of photos with the boys. He's not part of the team. You know what I mean? So Mikey's Mount Waverly mindset just took over and crumbled him. And that's what would have happened against me. That's what would have happened against any of the top guys in the division. So he needs to worry about getting his skill sets better rather than running his mouth. And I think he learned that lesson because I haven't heard a peep from him since. So there you go.
I spoke to Michael Manu ahead of his Colby Thickness fight, and he spoke about the possibility of coming up to Ignite to train with you and the guys up there. Have you spoken to him at all about that?
Yeah. He wants to. He wants to come and visit. He'll probably do it after my fight, and he'll crash on my couch probably. And yeah, we'll get some good training. And I don't know what's next for Mikey. We might have to talk to him about that. But I know that whatever he chooses to do, I think he knows what he needs to do next. I think it would be good for him to like get out of his comfort zone, get a different perspective of a few things, and work on some of his skills. But like I said, man, the kid's right at the top level, and people have short-term memories, and they saw Colby get the better of him, and congrats to him. But I think that Mikey's skills speak more than that fight. So I'm excited to get some training in with him hopefully soon.
Jumping back, talking about like the UFC with the emails and stuff, and at least knowing, is it nice to know that you're at least on the radar? Like, does that bring a certain level of like comfort?
Yeah, look, it does. It does. yeah, it is cool when you know these people, when you know their names, and then when they know yours, you kind of get a bit excited. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. I've got you know, I've got work to do. I've got a lot of work in front of me, and I just need to prove to them that I'm undeniable and that I'm exciting, and you know, why not? Like I think the flyweight division in the UFC is pretty shallow, man. I think that there needs some storylines. There needs some excitement in the flyweight division, and I'm keen to get in there and do my thing.
Sean, I thank you so much for your time. I've one more question for you. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. Um, After over a year out of the cage, fights falling through, not working out, health issues, out of everything, is the process, is it enjoyable now to be back and to be going through it?
100%, 100%, mate, 100%. I love this shit. I love fighting. I don't know what it is. Every time I'm low, every time I think, nah, you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore. Something drags me back. Something drags me back. I don't know what it is. If it's ego, I don't know if it's insecurity. I don't know what it is. It drags me back. And I'm just a gym worm. I'm in there all the time, and I can't wait to put on a show May 4th. I'm in a different frame of mind at the moment, and I like the frame of mind that I'm in. Whereas in the past, I think I've been like, oh, I've got time. I want to be complacent, or I want to maybe fight twice a year only so I can keep leveling up. Now I just want to freaking go through everyone and anyone. So right now it's May 4th, Nobuyoshi. Not going to say his last name, but out of respect, just because I don't want to get it wrong. And then we'll see what's after that, and hopefully end of 2024, we're on to bigger and better things.
When you find, like, you hit the scale and you know there's only 24 hours to go, will that be like a sense of relief where you're like, oh, I've made it?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, oh man, so much can go wrong in this sport. It's actually crazy. That's something that you have to learn to just deal with as a fighter. My advice to younger fighters would be just chill out in training camp. Don't put so much damn pressure on yourself. If you're not hitting twice a day every single day, what I'm saying is more is not always better. And that's something that I've had to learn over my career. I was doing 2, 3 a days, pushing myself, getting 4 hours, 5 hours of sleep, working 2 a days, repeat, you know, and don't do that. If you're a younger fighter, chill out. You don't need to be doing 2 a days every single day. Okay. Get your sleep, get 8 to 10 hours of sleep every night. Get a nutritionist if you're going to cut weight. Get a nutritionist or a dietitian. There are plenty of good ones all across Australia that are based in Melbourne, Sydney, Queensland, wherever they're based. Get someone good. That's what I've done, and it's made a big difference. You know, in my other camps, I've tried to save money and cheat here or there and everywhere. This camp, I'm just doing absolutely everything that I can, and it has paid dividends. My nutrition's been on point. My sleep has been as good as I'm going to get it, and you know, my work, training, lifestyle balance is a lot better. I'm not aping out for 12 hours per day. I'm you know, it's quality over quantity for me now.
Sean, I thank you so much for your time. We're excited to see you back. Safe travels over to New Zealand. I will see you in New Zealand. And thank you so much for
Yeah,
talking to me today.
no worries, Joel. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.